So this is a prequel film of the Omen, the 1976 film, which starred Gregory Peck, big horror hit, which of course deals with the this powerful senator who adopts a child who turns out to be the Antichrist, and kills a bunch of people in that movie. It's a classic. This is the First Omen is a prequel to that, leads up to the events and follows very closely to a movie we've already seen called Immaculate, the one that starred Sydney Sweeney. Nearly identical plot lines at the beginning. We meet Nell Tiger Free, who plays Sister Margaret. She's a young nun who has come from the States, just like an Immaculate, come to Italy, just like an Immaculate, to take the veil, to take her vows as a nun. She's working at this orphanage where all these troubled girls are. That she meets a young Carlita, who is, things aren't right at the orphanage. There's you hear screams. She sees things. She sees a bunch of like medical stuff happening behind closed doors. Something's not quite right. Carlita's not quite right. There's something going on. We also have Ralph Ineson, who of course played the Green Knight himself and was also in The Witch, who plays Father Brennan and is kind of on the hunt for the demon child, or he knows that something's not going on right, and he's trying to kind of get into the orphanage and get records and try to pinpoint stuff. The plot is real messy. There's a lot going on to lead up to the Omen film, but that's our setup. Zach, what do you think?
So the First Omen, I think, is probably one of the better Omen movies. I think that's the best place to start talking about this movie, because for what it does, I think it does a good job. I think first time feature director Arkasha Stevenson is bringing a lot of style to the table. I think it's got some good casting. I was surprised in one scene to see Ralph Ineson and think, oh man, that's that guy from the Green Knight. I know him. And then I saw Bill Nye and was like, oh god, Bill Nye's in this movie. And then Charles Dance shows up. Man, Charles Dance from Game of Thrones. Like, great casting. Like, you got some good numbers here. I think there's some good visual flair in the First Omen. I think my problem with the First Omen comes in the fact that it came just 14 days in theaters after Immaculate, the Sydney Sweeney feature, and they have so much in common, dude. It's like in, what was it, 98 when Pixar did A Bug's Life and DreamWorks did Ants, like right next to each other, or when Christopher Nolan's The Prestige came out at Warner Brothers, and just like half a month later, I think Sony put out The Illusionist starring Edward Norton, both period magic movies. Like, two studios have functionally produced the same film right next to each other. And it's difficult for me to avoid comparing them because Immaculate is notably better. So it's weird for me to talk about the First Omen, but I'm excited to get into it. Where do you want to start talking about it, Andy?
Oh gosh, we can talk about the plot. One of the things that really bothered me about this is the pacing is kind of terrible. It takes us like the whole first act, or almost the first hour, to get to the premise where we know an Omen movie has to do with some possessed child or someone who's the Antichrist or is going to birth the Antichrist. It takes us like an hour to get there. We have a good opening scene where Ralph Ineson and Charles Dance talk about some conspiracy, and they have a photo in it. We got to find this girl. And then there's like 40 minutes of Nell Tiger Free's character. She's coming to Rome. She's looking to be, and her Italian isn't very good, just like in Immaculate. And there's a lot to it's not scary at all. Like, none of the creepy stuff creeps you out. None of the jump scares scare you. The pacing is just not real good. I think you could have shortened this up, because it's a full 2 hours. You could have shortened it up and it probably would have worked a lot better.
I do think there's some tremendous visuals. Like, I think that's worth mentioning in this movie. I think Immaculate had big visuals too. Both surprisingly deep, I think, for what they're given. But First Omen is trying to lead into, as kind of a prequel, it's trying to lead into the 1970s film where you have Damien, the child of the Antichrist, who's born of a jackal. Here in the First Omen, I didn't really know where it was headed. Maybe the trailer gives it away more, but I figured since we were revisiting, I didn't want to go back and rewatch it. I just thought, let me go in fresh, no trailer. I'll just see where it ends up. And like, I could not shake the fact that it just keeps running into things that Immaculate did. Like, you get the nuns and you get the woman from America who, yeah, like you said, can't speak Italian very well. And people like, oh, it's okay, you're good here. And then it's like, oh, there's a whole having pregnancy and birth thing, which is weird. And then she has weird dreams, and then she might be pregnant. I'm just like, oh boy, like, wow, these things are just like each other. And that's not a good way to review a movie. Like that's no good way to kind of fall into these things. And I think the things the movie does well is A, the visuals, B, I think the casting's creative. Like I said at the top, like you got some good older fathers, right? Ralph Ineson and Charles Dance. Nell Tiger Free is actually really, really, I'm gonna say understated as our hero. Like she does a lot of work to kind of, as Sister Margaret, to kind of, I'll put the film on her back, but like carry us through the experience of like a nun who is in this place where things are clearly starting to go wrong, and she's devoting herself to it and questioning whether or not this is the right thing to do. The film actually has a lot of fun in the lore with like, why would you want to birth the Antichrist, right? That's something those Omen movies did well, because of course people have fallen out of love with God. And if there's a devil for them to be afraid of, then they will fall back into the church. That was a whole thing in the 70s, the Satanic Panic. Like, that stuff I think all works well here. I think the biggest hindrance for the film is its script. Like, I think that's not something that Arkasha Stevenson's going to direct around, you know, like it has to end at a certain point. It has to lead somewhere. Whereas Immaculate had had the freedom to go wherever. Like, I had no idea where Immaculate was going to end, but here, like, I understand that Damien, the child of the Antichrist, is coming, and this is a whole thing. Like, it's like I knew too much. It's like I knew too much, Andy. If I'd seen this in a vacuum, it would have been better for me, I think.
Yeah, but possibly. I was going to say Immaculate does a much better job of having clear themes about women's bodily autonomy and themes related to that. This kind of, it does a lot of those same, has a lot of those same beats, but it doesn't really connect those dots about women just controlling their own bodies, their own destinies. It just kind of glosses over that. The effects are a lot better. Like, this has a better budget. I wish Immaculate had the budget that this movie had. It would have been even more fantastic, because we do get a lot of special effects in separate places. They are filming in on location in Rome, I think it is. So that stuff works, but my biggest issue with this is just the pacing was just, it drags. It took so long to get to the thing that we were waiting for. The beach makes you old. Is what what we call that from now on. We know the beach makes you old. Let's get to the part where the beach makes you old, and it doesn't tie in very well. I think that's one of the reasons the very first the Omen, the original 1976, works really well, is kind of the mystery of it all. That's why is this kid like this? Where does he come from? You slowly unravel this conspiracy, and it's really kind of haunting and intriguing. And this has none of that. Like, you're never pulled in by the who's pulling the strings. It's like, well, everyone at this orphanage is in on it. Everyone's evil. Everyone's trying to like do things that they're not. It just doesn't do a good job of really bringing you into like having some sort of mystery. When the twists and reveals come, you just kind of roll your eyes. You're like, nothing is a surprise.
Yeah. Like some good send-ups of old Italian horror. It's worth mentioning, like some big visuals, a really cool opening scene with this like big stained glass thing that shatters and falls. Like, I think that stuff's all really creative. Also worth mentioning, Ishtar Curry Wilson, who plays Sister Angelica in this film. She's an Australian actress. I've never seen her in anything else. She is wildly creepy and needs more work immediately. You should put this girl in like three Hollywood films a year. She's great. She's awesome. Super weird. Like, love her. Otherwise, like, I don't know. I feel like the first Omen is just a little bit, I don't want to say lacking. It's difficult to, it's a film that suffers from its own kind of premise, right? Like I heard Abigail, that vampire ballerina movie that came out from Radio Silence just a couple months ago. Apparently Abigail has the same problem. They don't get to like the girl is a vampire till like an hour into the movie. It's gosh. My God, they tell you that in 30 seconds in the trailer, you know, like, come on. It's a film that like you can't, it's hard to watch around because you already understand where it's going. And like, while I do think it is one of the better Omen films, probably the second best one after the first one. And I know there was a 2006 remake that was not the heat.
I've seen that. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen it. I wouldn't know. I think this is still a unique artist approaching the series in a way that does give space to another feature that could continue being good. I do think this is a new kick up for the first Omen. I think for the Omen series, like, I think there is ground to continue here. But this one doesn't quite have the mustard. You know what I mean? If I ordered this at a bar, I'd enjoy it, and then I'd order a different drink. That's what I think. Yeah.
Well, I don't really have much much more to
I
say.
know. I feel like I'm running out of gas on it. I wish I could tell you the soundtrack was awesome. Like, I think I'm already trying to. I shouldn't get ahead of like what I think people are going to say on YouTube because I don't do this show because I'm not scared of what people think. But also, I feel like people are going to roast us for saying like, "How could you not like this movie? I can't believe you thought it sucked." It's like I wouldn't tell you that I didn't like The First Omen. I like The First Omen. I would tell you to go watch Immaculate, a movie that came out 2 weeks before and just better. Like I don't know. Immaculate just has a bit more freedom to move around in its space, and Sydney Sweeney's a lot of fun. Like and people are creepier in Immaculate, and the jump scares are better in Immaculate. Like I just feel like Immaculate just does everything a little bit better, and I hate that movies have to come out next to each other like this, and I'm gonna end up being so biased about them. But here I am. I'm honest. That's where I'm at. Yeah. And
Yeah,
with that,
and
I'm
I think
sorry.
it.
Yeah. Go
I,
ahead.
I think it was a small financial success. I think um, it's done over 50 million, and I'm not sure what the budget was, but the budget seems pretty small. So I think it's doing well for what it is.
Yeah, I'd like to see Stevenson get some like a more original script in her hands. I think she could do something really special. Like I think this is a great jumping off point, though. Andy, would you recommend The First Omen?
I'm going to say soft pass, unless you're a big
Ooh.
Omen fan, like you're an Omen completionist, and you've seen all of them, and you wanna. But no, I didn't enjoy this. It's not scary. It's too long. It's dreadfully slow. There are some good performances. I think Nell Tiger Free is very reserved. She does a good job of seeming like a very plain, naive person. Ralph Ineson collecting a paycheck and donating his great voice to this film, but otherwise, I'd say probably pass on this.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. It's fine. If you're a horror head, I would tell you to watch Immaculate. And if you watched Immaculate and you want to check this one out, I would tell you to go in thinking as little of Immaculate as you can, and the film will still run you into it because they're just so similar. Like it's like they were built off two spec. It's like both movies came from the same spec script. Like they're just too close to each other. But that being said, yeah, I think there's some good stuff here. If you're an Omen head, go for it, right? Yeah, if you got the T-shirt
Right.
and you've read the book, go off. Like, and again, I do think it's a good place for what's next. Yeah, like, whereas Universal's last Exorcist movie left them in a lurch, now they're finding Mike Flanagan to take them in a new direction. You could just run on this. This is good. This is good. This is more than passable, but it's just not great. And like, I think there's a better example of that readily available, and that just happened to be the way it is. It's a terrible thing for me to judge a movie on, but with that, we should wrap up the show. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So we're actually taking a couple of weeks off because we're both traveling. So we're going to be back on June 18th with Inside Out 2, the sequel to the 2013-2014 follow-up by Disney Pixar, and Hitman, which is Glenn Powell's new Hitman comedy, something or other, which is actually out this Friday on Netflix. So we'll be back with those two. Some other FYI releases. Bad Boys Ride or Die comes out this Friday. The Watchers, which is the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan's horror film, also comes out this Friday. And later, towards the end of the month, we'll be taking a look at The Bike Riders and Kinds of Kindness. But for next show, Inside Out 2 and Hitman.
Very much looking forward to Hitman. I've seen people say it's either possibly the best film of the year or like a total snooze fest. So it's going to be one or the other, right? Can't wait. And then Inside Out 2, I saw what was a Hollywood Reporter trying to sneak by us today and says this was Pixar's first sequel since 2019 with Toy Story 4. And it's like, did we all see Lightyear? I mean, Lightyear wasn't technically a sequel, but like they definitely made Toy Story 4 and then they made another Toy Story movie. So I feel like that might qualify, but either way, if you enjoyed what we're doing here on the show, if you like movies and you don't like paying for them and you like to listen to a podcast where people tell you about them, the best way to keep listening to that podcast is subscribe to Off Script Film Review. Subscribe to your boys right here on the show. We like watching movies. We do it every week, and we like telling you about them. So if you want us to, tell you directly from creator to listener as the way it should be, the best way to do that is to subscribe to the show. You can also leave a rating and review wherever applicable. We'd appreciate it. It means more to us than you'd know. You might think, rating on iTunes, that can't be that big of a deal. It is. It helps us immensely. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia, wherever you're at, we're there. You might be listening to us there right now. Slide us a little love. Huh? Slip us a little something in the comments. We'd appreciate it. Maybe 5-star? Probably not a 4. Probably a 5. Feels like a 5 to me. If I had to put one on there, I'd say say it's 5 stars, but that's just me. You can also find us on YouTube, where we're uploading stuff every single week. Big things happening on the YouTube channel. Come check it out. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those usual places. You can follow us over there too. You can comment, you can like, you can subscribe, all the exciting things you do. Mail at offscriptfilmreview.com is our email. If you want to hit us direct, you can send us an email, whatever you're thinking about. And if you want to check out our website, we have additional content, interviews, stuff going on at offscriptfilmreview.com. Boy, what a week at the movies. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.